Okay, good morning. Hello. Welcome to Crochet Along with Hannah at the Upper Chichester Library. Today we are working on part 2 of the shawl project. I have a semi-completed shawl here for you. I still have to finish the last little bit of this row, but then we are going to move on. I might do a few more rows just so you can see how the progression goes, that we are still following the pattern that I had printed out and put in the kits. Again, if you're just joining and just catching this crochet tutorial, you can stop by the Upper Chichester Library and pick up a crochet kit to go. It comes with one skein of yarn. It comes with a crochet hook, a darning needle, and a couple of crochet guides in case you're a beginner. It has some how-tos and some explanations, such as how to read all of the stitch abbreviations and step abbreviations that they like to put in the patterns, as well as size gauges and how to convert those to the different methods they use to size hooks. There is a chart for that here with the American lettering, and then there is you're either going to find them lettered or numbered, and the European hooks all come with the millimeters on them, but most of the American hooks will have the numbers on them too. But some hooks, like especially if you order them from like Amazon or Wish or something like that, they're just going to have, I don't know if it's going to focus, I have a little bit of a glare. Let me see. See, that just says 5mm on it. 5mm is an H hook. That is what I gave you in the kits. The written pattern that I printed and gave you will call for a DK weight yarn and a J hook, which translates to a 6mm. But I did not have 6mm hooks or DK weight yarn to give out. I have worsted weight yarn and a H hook, but the pattern, as you can see, I am using a worsted weight yarn on mine. I just dropped my darning needle, excuse me, gonna need that. The H hook and worsted weight still works just fine, which is why I have continued to use it on my own personal project. And this is I was telling you guys last week that I was using a self-striping yarn to create my shawl. So I didn't have to worry about changing colors as much as the pattern says, and as it is curling, I did say this would curl, and I also said it would be a crescent moon shape. This is the shape that my shawl is taking on. It is about halfway complete, but you know, it takes a little bit longer than I anticipated to complete. I am sorry, I am clumsy today. I think I just dropped something off the table. But this is what I was talking about. It's going to curl a little bit, but that's just because you're holding it in your hand. It heats up and then it curls in. But you can block it when you are done. If you are going to block it, get some foam mats like you would put in like a nursery or something, you know, the ones that snap together like puzzle pieces. Lay them out on a flat surface. Take some push pins, smooth it out, lay it flat with the push pins, spritz it with a spray bottle and a little bit of water. You can put some spray starch in there too. If you're going to wash it before you block. Hand wash, if you can wash it on a gentle cycle. For something like this, when it comes to the lay flat to dry part, block it. Pin it down to a flat foam board. Hit it with some spray starch. As it's at the damp phase, it'll set itself nicely and retain its shape. If it does not after you've done that, then that means that you may have crocheted a little bit too tight, which is fine. If you're just starting out, you're going to have projects that are crocheted too tightly. You're going to have projects that are crocheted too loosely. It will help you pay attention to how tight or how loose you are holding your yarn and your hook. When I first started crocheting, I was a very uptight crocheter. All of my projects were very tightly I mean, granted, they, and people would assume that a really tightly woven or crocheted or knitted project would hold together. It actually will break quicker if it's crocheted too tightly, because you're already stretching the yarn to a point where it's at its breaking point, so it's not always good. Something like this, you want a nice even tension, but excuse me, why do I always get the hiccups when I do these tutorials? I have no godly idea. But we are going to continue on with this row. I am going to finish this row with you, and then I'm going to teach you a few things about finishing this project off. Again, I've only gotten to about the halfway points to where I want this to be. When you're making this shawl, if you're making it for yourself and you want to check your size, hey, is this done yet? Because this is kind of a never-ending pattern. It tells you a natural stopping point in the pattern. Go through this many rows and you should be done. It may not fit you. This is the wonder of this pattern. You can just continuing the pattern as long as you want to, and get it to the size that you want or need it, either for yourself or for whomever you're making this for. Just continue the pattern as written. There's no guesswork. Oh my goodness, how many stitches? It's the same pattern. You're just alternating 2 rows throughout the rest of this pattern, and it should be good to go when you get it to the size you want it to. Now, if I was making this for myself and I wanted to check my size, I would start by pulling my loop so that it's got plenty of room so you're not going to accidentally yank out stitches. You can wrap this around yourself behind you and see if that's just going to hit where you want it to hit. This would make a great shawl, the movies when they open back up, or church shawl, It's nice depending on what you want it for. Make it in a color that's going to go with everything, black, gray, tan, white, whatever, and just start gauging, how that fits on you, or get measurements, for the person you're making it for. Like I said, it's a good shawl. You can make it as big or as small as you want it to. This would even be great for, like, if you're making doll clothes. It can be for a bigger doll, not necessarily a Barbie. I mean, if you want to use the micro thread and crochet one for a Barbie, you could, but more power to you. I'm not crocheting with micro thread ever. I don't have patience or the time to keep breaking stuff. However, you're going to continue on with this pattern. Again, you can come by and pick up yarn. It's not going to be this yarn. This is, I honestly don't remember what yarn this is, but this is the yarn I have been using. We don't have any of this here. I got this at Michael's. You can catch it on clearance every now and then. I believe this is a Karen cake. Don't quote me on that. There's a few places I get my yarn. I either get it from Michael's, Joann's. There is a yarn store that I absolutely love in Bethlehem called the Knitter's Edge. They have invited the library up there a couple of times. Largest yarn shop in Pennsylvania, not a paid sponsor, but it's a beautiful yarn shop. Then there's there's Hobby Lobby if you're into hobby. I am apparently glowing. I have the curtain down. I am extremely pale. I am sorry. I've done my best to prevent that, but you can only do so much. But yeah, lovecrafts.com, great place to get yarn. Again, not a paid sponsor, but this yarn that I am giving out in the kits, if you want to continue getting this brand, it is called Brava. It is a worsted weight yarn. It comes from Knit Picks. They were kind enough to donate 50 skeins of this. They're a great company. They have been really good to us over the years. Every time I have needed yarn, they've come through. We have a lot of great yarn companies that are US based that have donated yarn to us. Red Heart is a big one. They are constantly donating yarn. Lion Brand always donates yarn. Barreco, always do. I probably butchered their name. I am highly sorry. They have donated yarn, and they've donated nice yarn. All of them have come through and, you know, given us some great product to give to you guys over the years. And I like supporting companies that support nonprofits and their local communities, because without these yarn donations, I don't know if I would be able to give out the yarn, which is one of my biggest things with doing these classes and tutorials. Even when I was doing them in person, I wanted to give away the yarn and the hooks for free, because if you're going to attempt something and you're not sure if you're going to stick with it, you're not going to want to spend the money on it. I wanted to provide a way of free opportunity to try something you may or may not like. It's not for everybody, but it's fun to try, especially now when you're looking for new things to keep yourself occupied when there's really not much to do because of this pandemic. This is a good hobby. You can create whatever you want with crochet. And also, these hooks came from Bead Park. They sent us a pack of 100, which is generous. We'll be able to give these out for free for a long time. Back to the project. I have a little bit of ADHD today, but you know, that's me. We are going to finish out this row. Again, you're alternating rows with where you start. It's pretty much the same row, it just starts on a different stitch every time. You're either going to be adding the two stitches in one hook, or you're going to be doing a decreased stitch where you're crocheting 2 stitches together. Where you finish off on your row depends on where the next row starts. You always start the same way you finished the previous row. Again, pay attention to that. Use a stitch marker to mark which side is what, whether it's your increase side or your decrease side, because you're only, and you know, that's just how we go about it. I'm going to finish this row, and then I'm going to teach you a few things about how to continue on. I am just going to finish off this project with a single crochet around the entire piece. This is a great opportunity to teach you about the self-striping yarn. You are going to have uneven blotches like that. When you're using a self-striping yarn, it's not always going to magically start your next color at the beginning of the next row. And you have to decide for yourself whether you want to keep everything evenly or just let the yarn take its course. I have been lucky with this, and I can't say it's going to be the same for every self-striping yarn, but all of my rows have worked up pretty much evenly with the color transitions. I have had it in past projects start and stop in some really strange places, to the point where I had to back it out till the beginning of the row, cut it off, and then pull the yarn and cut that off until I reached where my transition point was, just to keep it from looking too unhinged. Some patterns, it doesn't really matter if it starts or stops in a weird spot, but when you're doing something like this, it's better to have it evenly, unless you're going for a whatever carefree look. But this has worked up fairly evenly, which I'm grateful for, because I haven't had a whole lot of time to fuss with it. I apologize, that is ridiculous. Let me silence that. It's usually silenced, but I forgot to do that. My mother told me someday. That is not good. We are going to, excuse me 1 second. That is probably, we're gonna have to call them back when we're done. I forgot to silence my phone. Apologize. I got a late start with this today. getting there. We're almost to the end of this row. Just keep stitching. These are double stitches. You yarn over, you go through your loop, you yarn over, you pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 2. And this is where I'm decreasing. So I stopped at the last 2 stitches of the row, and again, this is why you want a stitch marker. You see how that pulls? Some people will confuse that and think these are stitches for this row, but they are not. It's just where it pulls together. So to decrease, we're going to show you this again. You are going to yarn over like so, where you just take your yarn and you wrap it over your hook. You insert into your stitch, you yarn over, you pull through. You have 3 loops on your hook. You yarn over, you now have 4 loops on your hook. Now if you were doing a regular double crochet, this is where you would pull through 2, but you're not going to. You're going to leave that alone. You're going to put your hook into the next stitch, you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull through that again. You see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches on our hook. We are going to yarn over and pull through 2. I feel like that's a bit much. Hold on a second. I think I goofed. It happens on occasion. But you just back it out and you keep going. Yarn over, put your yarn in the hole, pull it through, 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2. That's the step I missed. Before you go into that next hole, you should have 2 loops on your hook. Again, we're going to do that one more time just so I can make sure I explain this properly, because I did not the first time. Yarn over, go through your stitch, yarn over, pull up your loop, you have 3 on the hook. Yarn over, you have 4, pull through 2 of those. You should have 2 remaining loops on your hook. Yarn over, go into your next stitch, yarn over, pull through. You have 4 stitches on your 4 loops on your hook, not stitches. Yarn over, you're going to pull through 2 of those, you have 3. Yarn over, you're going to pull through all 3, and that creates what you're going to see in the pattern as DC 2 tog, which is DC double crochet 2 together. That's what that is. It looks a little weird. It's going to look a little like a triangle, but that's what we want. And then we are going to, because I'm going to transition into doing my border, I'm going to show you how to do that without cutting off the yarn. I am going to single crochet all the way around this piece. I'm going to start doing that. Now my shawl is nowhere near done. This is not big enough to where I want it, but to use this piece I can always back out my work. And before I do that, I want to show you some stuff, because I did not incorporate these into my lessons on how to do some things that you may need to do with this project. I am going to show you how to, I'm grabbing my scissors, I'm going to cut off a piece. I have an extra skein in my project. I'm just going to show you how to do this. This is how I tie together when I am switching skeins. I cross them, you have an X. You wrap each side around each other one time, so it's kind of like swirly. That's flat, right? You can adjust this if you need more room, but you're also going to come up here and you're going to cross the top loop together. You're going to go under once on the right side and go on over and under on the next. See, we have a nice box. We are going to pull all 4 of those nice and flat. This is a box knot, flat knot. I learned this from Bella Coco. She is great. She taught me how to do this, and it has been my saving grace, because you can pull this, you can kind of roll it, and it goes nice and flat, and that is very secure. You're not gonna unravel that at all. And you can either work this flat, crochet right over top of those ends. I'm a little bit more daring with it, because I have faith in my knot. If you don't have faith in your knot, leave the ends. And I trim mine extremely close, which is the wonder of the box knot or the flat knot. There are multiple ways to transition your yarn. Some people don't even bother tying it together. I tie mine together. You see, I trimmed off that excess right to it. I could pull on that. I pulled a little too hard. I'm a little bit stronger than most people. But it usually does not come apart. Or, you know, I've seen some people just like crochet it in where, you know, apparently I tug a little too hard, which is fine because you can always add extra loops, you know, go under more than once, wrap it around 2 or 3 times instead of just up and over one time. But that is a very sturdy way to transition. I broke it. I can't believe I broke it. I've never pulled one apart like that. Must be having a day. But again, pull it nice and flat. And you have some wiggle room to work. You can either leave that flat, but you know, if you're a little bit stronger like I just was, leave the pieces long, crochet right over top of them. Or you could even, you know, leave them a little bit longer than that and weave them through, which I'm going to show you how to do. With this end, I'm going to single crochet all the way around this. I don't have to tuck this in. I can crochet it right into the work. But if you're not going to do that, then you're going to want to weave it in, which is why I gave you a darning needle. And I'm showing you this before I do my single crochet all the way around because I have the ends to do that with. You just thread your end, and then you're going to weave it back and forth along your edge underneath the stitch, so it's around the post instead of on top of the stitch. And then you're just going to pull that through. Like so. And then you can knot that where it is. If you want it to, you just go back through your next weave point. And then you're going to find where that yarn meets itself. You're going to come up through that, and you're going to create like a little bubble. My yarn is a little tight. I need to find my tail. And then you're going to take that, go through your little bubble, and you're just going to pull it through. I knotted myself already. We are having a day. That is fine, because after we pull everything through, you can just kind of cut that loose. Again, you're going to single crochet all the way around, so you're going to crochet right on top of this anyway, and it'll hide your sins. Back to the single crocheting the border. Now that I've shown you how to tuck ends, I need to find my row, put my hook back in, and we did not pull out a stitch. That is good to know. And these things, usually my ends are a little bit longer than this, but you can save these and use these as stitch markers. I've done it. Use it on a contrast, like this is darker, so I would use something light like this to make a stitch marker. You can do that. Now I'm going to show you how to turn excuse the technical difficulties. I just lost my video feed, so now I can't see. There we go. Oh, Facebook, get your nonsense together. I'm going to chain one, and I'm just going to single crochet along this whole edge right into the side of these stitches. So I'm going to go into this stitch, going to single crochet right there, and then I'm going to continue to do that all the way down. Just single crochet. You don't want to crochet too tightly, but you're just going to do that one single crochet for every stitch. Unless you crochet loosely, then you're going to want to put 2 in the sides of your double crochets, just to make sure you don't bunch up your work by doing this. If you would prefer to cut off and start a new row, you can do that. This just, the less ends you have to weave in, the sturdier your work is going to be. If you can go find a jumbo self-striping cake, do that. If you want to do just a single solid color shawl, do that. You don't have to follow the advice of the color changes in the pattern. That's like, if you want to, go for it. If you don't. Simple as that. I tell people to see a pattern as a guideline. If you're not sure how something is going to turn out, make it as written the first time you do it. Especially if you're using a new pattern, you're always going to make at least 2 of what you're trying to do. At least I do anyway. I will try a pattern as written the first time. I will assess how it came out and see what I need to tweak personally to work for me. I have done that with many patterns, and you know, as you can see, this self-striping yarn, as I am crocheting all the way around, my colors aren't going to line up. So if you want to go through with a more neutral color that's going to match everything for your border, you can do that. I'm not going to though, because you know, this is me. And as you can see, this is creating a much flatter edge as opposed to here where it is not single stitched yet. It's a little bit uneven. Crocheting around it with a single crochet gives you a flatter line. It gives you a more finished look. And from this single crochet all the way around, if you wanted to do an additional border with a design, you can do that. This gives you a nice flat even edge to work with too. You know, I think the triangle piece that goes down your back, that might look good with a nice shell stitch. If you wanted to do something fancier and hang some beads from it, you could do that. Because there's some, I mean, this is a nice little shawl that you could fancy up, or it's a nice casual shawl. It doesn't have to be fancy. I do have some fancier patterns. But this is a simple shawl. It's a good place to begin. It teaches you the double crochet, gets you familiar with increasing, gets you familiar with decreasing, and it kind of pushes your boundaries as to making sure you're maintaining shape. It forces you to count your stitches. You're only increasing each row by 1 stitch, but it seems like a lot more because you're putting 2 stitches in 1 hook for 2 stitches in a row on one side, and then you're decreasing by a stitch on the other. It kind of makes you question math a little bit, but you know, it keeps you paying attention. So there is that. Gonna keep going. This takes a little bit of time. Like I said, I'm going all the way around my project. With this, when I get to the edge of this side of the project, I will show you how to round that edge. This will be more of a rounded edge, so it should just go smoothly. but we want to keep it rounded and not box it off at the corner. This is a rounded corner. Keep going. This goes quicker than you think it would. I'm almost at the edge. I've got a little bit more to go. It's going to seem like it takes a long time, but that's because you're essentially doing it's not too bad. It's just one stitch per row that you've made. Times 4. Well, technically times 3, but still less stitches than doing a row, I think. The single crochet is a lot faster. This kind of gives you a break too from all that double crochet. It's just not as many steps. I have some noise going on outside. Hopefully my microphone is not picking that up. I am almost there. I am just rounding this edge now, and I am just going to put 3 single crochets and 1 in that peak. It's just a rounded edge. Then I'm going to continue on down the other side. This is the longer edge of the project. As you can see, we just finished this bottom here, and I don't mind that that's a different color because this is a tutorial piece, so I can just use it to show you how flat that looks when we do that. I'm going to crochet along this edge, and then I'm going to single crochet down this edge, and then I'm going to tie that off, and then I'm going to show you again how to weave and end it. So that is what we're doing. So if you just bear with me, we can make it to this other end. And you see, by putting the 3 stitches in, we've created a nice round edge there. And this is an end that I was telling you about my yarn had broken. There was just a flaw in the skein, and I knotted that off so that it did not break. It looks like, give me 1 second. I am just going to tuck this a little farther into my stitch because I left that tail a little long because I know there was a weakness in the yarn, and I did not want it to break in the washer or break if somebody tugged on it a little bit. So I left that one a little bit longer and just sewed that through. Okay, that's secure. I always double check when I'm going back and crocheting my edge. I make sure if there's any stitches that they are secure. It's a good time to do that before you crochet over them. Then you're just going to hold that flat along your edge and crochet that down right over top of it. It'll disappear and it'll save you the time of having to weave it in. I think that is a trick that is in every crocheter's pocket because nobody likes weaving in ends. It's a pain, which is why I do not do too many granny square projects, to be honest with you. Squares, look, I love making them. They're fun, especially if you experiment with the patterns within the granny square. As long as they come out the same size, you can alternate your pattern with the granny squares and create a really nice, like, collage type look, which is cool. You know, so we're just going to keep crocheting. I've crocheted that end in, and you can't see it now. Crocheting along this edge just always makes me nervous. You know why? Because if you have any mistakes, you're going to find them. And at this point, I'm not fixing them. If I made a boo-boo, and I'm at the point where I'm sewing in my ends and it's not going to be visible to anybody but me, that boo-boo stays. Crochet is great for teaching you how to let go of stuff, for sure, because I have noticed mistakes and things I've made that would have only been visible to me, and I've left them. I have also unraveled an entire project about 4 rows from completion because I made a mistake, so oopsie. I had no choice. You know, if you're feeling bold and you want to crochet a chevron stripe, do not do it lengthwise. That's better by width, trust me. You know. I think that would be a good tutorial, a chevron stripe. way through. So I am just going to, I'm going to crochet faster if I put my hands down instead of crocheting in a little layer. I have to hurry up and get done this edge because I've only got about 15 minutes of broadcast time left. I'm supposed to stop at 11:30. I'm going, just keep stitching. Oh, that's a lucky transition. Just transition to the gray yarn right as I was transitioning across the gray stripe. That's nifty. We are getting there. Almost there, and then we just gotta crochet along the edge of the last row that we crocheted, and then I'm going to cut this off and weave in my end and show you how to do that. Again, this isn't the size I need it to be for me, so but it's big enough that you get the gist of this project. Again, I'm going to round a corner in a minute. I'm going to show you how to do this corner. It's pretty much the same thing. You're just, when you reach the peak of the corner, you're going to put 3 stitches in one, just to kind of give it a rounded edge. If it was a box, then you just one chain and then 2 more stitches in the same hook. That gives it like a boxier square, but this is not a square. We want this rounded. If you want a peak, more of a triangled peak, then you do 1 stitch, 1 chain, 1 stitch. But I like this rounded. I think it just looks a little nicer when it's rounded. 2, 3. That's 3 stitches in the 1 hook stitch. And then I'm just going to single crochet across the stitches of this row. And then I'm going to cut this off. You only have the 3 sides because, you know, it's a triangle, so it's not a box. We're not going to have to do this around. Okay, we are almost there. And then I will sew on my ends and show you what this looks like when it's all finished off. Only downside to working with one of these cakes, I tell you, when you use a skein to start from the center, when you're starting with one of these cakes, go from the outside, because if you start from the middle, it's going to implode and it's going to be a mess. Start from the outside if you're using a cake, because you don't want to deal with it. So we are going to continue to crochet. Forever, and sometimes it does, but that's because, you know, you're reaching the end. It's kind of like a senioritis moment where it's like, you know, it's your last week of school before you graduate, and then kind of like that. This is like the grand finale, so this part always seems like it takes forever, but again, it takes less time to go around this with a single crochet the whole project. So just keep pushing through. Don't get, just do it. Just do it. And as you see, I've got another little end here from where I transition skeins. I'm just going to weave that through also. I almost double crochet. I don't want to do that. This, I've had a lot of people tell me I crochet funny. I'm aware. Most people, you know, the normies can crochet like, which I can, but I am just more efficient the way once you start crocheting, you're gonna find out how you crochet the best. It doesn't matter how you hold your hook, it doesn't matter how you hold your yarn, because it's not about what your hand is doing or what the hook is doing. It's about what the yarn is doing. As long as it's the same method throughout, you're fine. As for me, I hold everything in one hand like a knitter would, and maybe if you're transitioning from knitting to crocheting, this might be the method for you. I am also left-handed. I crochet right-handed, and you could pick up on that, but I am crocheting right-handed, and it's just how things worked out. You know, It's just a little easier. I'm quicker this way. You may not be. There are many different ways to hold your hook and yarn, and as long as your stitches, obviously I can crochet with the way that I hold my stuff, so it's whatever is the most comfortable for you, whatever helps you crochet the best. This was just, you know, when I was learning to crochet, I tried this method, which I can do, you know, just to show people I can crochet like a normie. But, you know, and I've had a lot of people give me grief over how I hold my yarn on my hook, but it doesn't matter. Like, don't let anybody tell you you're doing it wrong. Don't let anybody discourage you from crocheting or knitting or whatever because you hold things just slightly differently than they're taught. That's a tomato situation. As long as the yarn is doing what you're supposed to be doing with the yarn, it does not matter how you hold your hook. There have been, I've seen people who cannot hold the hook. They tape it to a table, and then they loop the yarn the way it needs to go and pull the yarn the way they need to pull it. And their work comes out fine. You find whatever way best suits you. You know, whatever makes you comfortable with crocheting, do it. I have taught people many different methods for holding their hooks over the years. It's different for everyone. Your hand, your brain needs to find a way that works best with your hand and your brain and your eyes. It's whatever suits you, just because it's not comfortable the traditional way. Who cares about it? You hold it however you see fit. I'm going to cut a longer tail now that I've reached my edge. I slip stitched into, let me show you it. Okay. You're finished, right? This is an important part. I needed to show you this. I'm going to back out a couple of stitches. I've already cut, but I cut a long tail for this reason. You might, excuse me, my nose itches. We're a couple stitches from the edge. I'm just going to put those back in. One stitch here, one stitch here, and I want to round my corner like I did on the other ones. So I am just going to put 2 more stitches in, because this is where I first did my first single crochet. You're going to finish off with 2 single crochets in one hole that you had your first one in, and then you're going to slip your hook through that first single crochet that you did, and you're going to slip stitch that. You did not yarn over. You're doing this like you would a single crochet, but you're going to pull that loop, and instead of yarning over and pulling through, you're just gonna pull through, and then you're gonna pull all the way through, because you are done. You are done, and you have a long tail, and we are going to take our darning needle, thread that through, and because I have the gray yarn here and the blue yarn here where I started my corner, I'm going to weave it through on the gray side so that it is less visible. Again, I'm just going to put this back and forth underneath the hook, or underneath the stitches. That's where I'm weaving this into for a few stitches. I like to do that this way. I'm going to pull this through. I don't want it to come off my darning needle yet because I want to secure it. It's because this is, and with something I'm going to wear a lot, I don't like to just weave it back through. I go into the loop of a stitch that I had done in a previous row just under it, and I'm going to knot this and pull my little tail through. But I want to keep a loop because I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to create a knot, just like if you're sewing and you knot off your work when you're done sewing. I'm going to knot that off and make sure it's secure. And then I'm just going to hide the rest of this tail down through my stitching. And then I'm going to cut that off. So I've knotted that in place so that the tail will not come back out. And I just snip that off and then it's clean. And we have a weird spot where, see this? That was a dye hiccup where for some reason there's a splotchy dye patch. It's gonna happen when you have variegated yarn. It'll even happen in a solid color yarn where you're working with this gray and out of nowhere there's a splotch of black. You can cut that out and re-knot, or you can just keep going. Half the time you won't. If it's not that noticeable, it's not that noticeable. But I probably, if I was gonna wear this, I would have cut this part out and kept my transition row nice and clean. But this is just a sample piece, so it's okay. And I have, you know, you're gonna see, again, there's another dye hiccup over in here. The Karen cakes are nice, but they are also known for their dye hiccups and their random tie-offs. There's nothing wrong with the quality of their yarn. It's nice yarn, it's soft, it's durable. You can throw it in the washer because it's acrylic. But this is my completed piece. I am going to take a photo of this and upload it into this thread, just so you can see what we did. It's a little difficult to show you without having a proper camera angle, unless, one moment, maybe I can join my own live stream. Maybe. I don't know. I know there's a way. I guess I was going to try to add myself to my own live through my personal Facebook page, but it's not letting me do that. Again, I'll take a picture and upload it to the group. Thank you so much for watching. It has been a good, tutorial today. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to call or message me through here. Call the library, message me through here. I'll answer your questions, or you can stop by during business hours. If I'm here, I will more than happily answer your questions. If you want to pick up a kit, come pick up a kit. They are free. If we're out, just leave your name and phone number and I'll make one for you. It's just, sometimes we run out of them. That doesn't mean we ran out of supplies. It just means I ran out of pre-made kits. I'll make you one. I'll set it aside. If you just want the pattern, I have those ready too. Thank you for watching. Please stay safe and check out our events tab on our Facebook page for more upcoming live streams, whether it be mine or Miss Pam's story time or Miss Teresa's art parties. We have plenty going on. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe, and I will see you guys next time.